young when Joe raised his hand to Michael. When Michael took a strong position against it and said, if you hit me or ever hit me again, I'm just not going to sing again.
It wasn't quite the story we thought we all knew. According to Randy, Jackson wasn't the victim of abuse. He was the golden goose, and he knew it. He was learning from a very early age about his power and how to manipulate it to his own ends. Over the next 10 years, Jackson grew from child prodigy to a truly global brand, and it was the launch of Off the Wall that made sure that the spotlight remained on him. It appeared that this unwanted attention on his private life sent him mad, turned Michael Jackson into Wacko Jacko. But I was about to find out this wasn't actually the case.
Michael Jackson went to his people and presented a copy of P.T. Barnum's biography.
A character that would keep the world at bay, Wacko Jacko. It was his finest achievement, an entirely fictitious version of Michael Jackson. Do you think it's the case that sleeps him, except he doesn't really sleep in it, and he doesn't own one? He then buys the bones of the Elephant Man. No, that wasn't true either. Luckily for Jackson, the press began to invent their own, communing with the ghost of John Lennon, or levitating as a form of relaxation. Burnt in a Pepsi ad, Jackson makes it a Wacko Jacko moment by insisting he don a silver glove to wave to the press. Wacko Jacko's wackiest development was Bubbles, the story that Jackson had moved a chimpanzee into his home. Jackson said, "I can't believe that people buy it. We can actually control the press. This is an important breakthrough for us." Together, Bob and Jackson had invented Wacko Jacko to keep the world from getting to the real Michael Jackson. So if Wacko Jacko was a construction, what was it hiding? I was about to look behind the crazy cardboard cutout.
After he became world,
he began by asking Bob Jones to get him a knighthood from the Queen of England.
Look, Michael Jackson,
setting an award for Reagan to give to him.
Outstanding example you have set for the youth of America and the world.
Jackson was given so many awards, he ran out of awards to be given. He began wearing medals and a military tunic, the medals from a British regiment who objected but failed to stop him. Jackson was a king, but without a kingdom. Awards were not enough. He needed his own principality.
All of his money has gone into Neverland.
More about him than anything else in his life. But I wanted to see what it was like now, with Jackson penniless and out of the pub. This is Michael with Emmanuel Lewis, 12-year-old star of TV show Webster. According to both his detractors and his friends, this is where the story of Jackson's downfall really begins. Lewis was a dwarf and considered something of a celebrity misfit, just as Michael Jackson was. They were clearly close, but what was the story behind the relationship?
I think Michael saw a lot of himself in Emmanuel Lewis.
Into the Lewis-Jackson relationship, and found out that apart from learning dance routines together, Michael and Emmanuel Lewis would lie together on the carpet, Jackson asking Emmanuel to imagine that they were Peter Pan and Wendy, flying together over Neverland. Jackson and Emmanuel later tried to book into the Four Seasons Hotel together, signing themselves in as father and son.
It almost seems like the cosmos brought Michael Jackson and Geordie Chandler together. They met in a...
When Jackson put the attention into this
moment in his life, but he was about to push it to the edge at the World Music Awards in Monaco. Geordie was later to call this trip their honeymoon. But all we know for sure is that while the awards ceremony continued, Jackson and Geordie remained in the suite.
It's a huge suite, Prince of Monaco. It got very embarrassing. He was bound to...
He dresses the same as Jackson, and he's learnt by heart Jackson's secret vows of friendship. No wenches or bitches. Live with me in Neverland forever. Be better than best friends.
It was so embarrassing that one of Michael Jackson's aides went to him and said,
But the person I wondered about was Geordie's father, Evan Chandler, a dentist. I dug deeper and found that as well as being a dentist, Evan was also a screenwriter.
He did a film, Men on Tights. Which film? Men on Tights.
Chandler asked his son if there was a sexual element to their relationship. Geordie said there was. Evan wanted compensation for his son and didn't want him in the public eye. But because this is Hollywood, he began negotiations. Jackson's team proposed a 3-movie deal, plus cash compensation, but Chandler refused. And it was only after negotiations finally broke down that the police got involved. I'd always thought that this was the moment when the police finally caught up with Michael Jackson, but I was finding out that this wasn't the story at all. The deal between Chandler and Jackson had faltered, and now it was the police's turn to sweep Neverland. But now, before they arrived, Jackson's chauffeur leaves with a suitcase filled with papers. It is widely believed that Jackson was tipped off about the raid by someone in the LAPD. Searching through Neverland, the police discovered that the corridor leading to Jackson's bedroom was fitted with sensors.
If you got near his bedroom, noise makers would go off in the house.
Quick hidden bedroom. All along the stairs going down, there are little porcelain dolls perched there.
For the first time in his life, Jackson was powerless. Allegations emerged from leaked reports of the police interview with Geordie of him being masturbated by Jackson, and of Jackson's euphemism for semen, which he called duck butter. Jackson was made to strip off in front of the police to see if Geordie's description of blotches on Jackson's penis and testicles were accurate. They were.
I have been forced to submit to a dehumanizing and humiliating examination by the Santa Barbara County Sheriff Department and the Los Angeles Police Department earlier this week.
The police investigation and the medical
for this investigation has recently informed us that he does not wish to participate in any criminal proceeding where he is named as a victim, that we must decline prosecution involving Mr. Jackson.
But what people don't know is the true cost to Jackson. He was never allowed to see Geordie again.
Settling it, I think, definitely gave Michael Jackson a sense
Losing control. He was not writing music, he was not composing or meeting friends or getting in touch with important people. He was canceling every interview and meeting.
He was thrown out of the Mirage Hotel for a party.
Now, wait a minute. Cut the camera off and the sound.
At the Mirage Hotel, and he was holding court with groups of boys. After he vacated the room, they opened it up, and there was like $30,000 worth of damage. Cigarettes put out in leather couches, broken liquor bottles everywhere, trays of rotting food. As the cleaning crew came in, they were asked, what's going on? And they held up the sheets and said, can you believe this? And there were words written in what appeared to be feces, human feces.
No one could stop him, not the managers, not the families of the kids. Only one person spoke out, Jackson's sister, LaToya.
I cannot and I will not be a silent collaborator of his crimes against small, innocent children. I have seen checks to the parents of these children, and it's for a great amount, and I'm not speaking pennies.
After the Geordie payoff, Jackson's sense of power went beyond anything he'd done before. He built Stalinist statues of himself. On stage, he was bathed in a Christ-like celestial light, standing crucified in front of his crowd. Driven by an obsession with his enemies, Di Diamond, so obsessed with fighting his detractors, he'd allowed his career to collapse. One of the shrewdest operators in the music business, who'd owned half the Beatles' back catalogue and had sold more albums than anyone else in history, was suddenly struggling for cash.
We've been going through the movement, ready to put it on them, you see.
Bob told me that in 2001, at an all-time low, Jackson agreed to a reunion with his brothers in New York, something he said he'd never do. I'd never even heard of this show. Down. Cheated, as they saw it, by the Chandler payoff. They weren't going to stop until they'd got him behind bars.
As a reporter, when
If you look back at all the photographs after the Jordy Chandler case, he's surrounded by children. It was very nearly as if he was saying, stop me if you can. You can't stop me. I'm Michael Jackson.
The standoff was reaching a critical moment. Jackson had spun his relationship with children into something media-friendly, visiting sick and orphan kids. But it was his relationship with one sick child in particular, Gavin Arvizo, that gave his enemies a new Geordie, the kid that could bring Jackson down.
2003, I'm getting calls from sources saying, we got another one, and this one's got cancer.
For Tom Snedden, the moment had arrived. Allegations of abusing Gavin Arvizo were tagged to a whole salvo of charges against Jackson.
The felony complaint involves 7 counts of child molestation and 2 counts that involve administering an intoxicating liquor to a child for the purpose of committing a felony.
It was the showdown both sides had been waiting a decade for, a battle to the end.
This case is about one thing only. It's about the dignity, the integrity, the decency, the honor, the charity, the innocence, and the complete vindication of a wonderful human being named Michael Jackson.
Tom Mesereau was the sharpest defense lawyer that celebrity money could buy. He'd managed to get charges against Mike Tyson of beating and raping his girlfriend dropped, and he was about to enter what was to become the biggest legal circus since O.J.
Walking into the trial, I thought we could win. I truly did. Even though public opinion was against us, I just saw holes in their witnesses, holes in their case, holes in their theories, and I just ignored the tablet.
I was standing outside the courthouse one day in Santa Maria, and he came in late, and he saw me across the way, and he stabbed at the air, and he went like that. Go to hell.
If Jackson had lost the plot, so had the prosecution, with their key witnesses, the Arvizo family.
The Arvizos. Are we allowed to say their name?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you know, the first time we saw the mother, Janet Arvizo, on the witness stand, we all looked at each other and said, uh-oh, what is going on here?
She was on the stand for 5 days, and every day she was somebody different.
There's a conspiracy theory that they were put forward as a way of getting Jackson off because they were so unreliable.
That's preposterous. That's completely ridiculous. That makes no sense at all. My intention was to prove that they were liars, they were manipulators, that they were out for money, and I think we effectively proved that in the courtroom.
In his desperation, DA Tom Snedden had thrown everything at Jackson.
The evidence that he had, some of it was really strong, and some of it...
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty of attempting to commit a lewd act upon a minor child.
No one had given Jackson a hope in hell of getting off, but he had. It was the fight of his life, and he'd won, but at a price.
What really needs to be taken into account is the personal devastation the trial had on Michael Jackson. I remember one day when he walked by, it was almost as if he had been taken out of an old, dusty attic, and he smelled like mothballs when he walked by me, and I was like, oh man, you know, it was like death.